any other thoughts about the play days and how you could take something that you learned from that back to your own home situation? There you go.
Well, we had just talked about getting some of the hay bales for our playground for the coming season, and I hadn't thought about using them the way that they had the planks of wood in between them and the slide coming off. So that was a neat idea to expand on something we'd already thought about.
So, is Rich in the room? No. Anybody know if it was actually hay or it was straw? It was straw, right? Cheap. Hay is expensive. So straw bales are an incredible resource, and I don't think there's anybody here from Friendly Avenue this year. No. So yeah, yes. So back to Keisha, who knows about straw bale as a planting medium.
Yeah. We planted some last year. I think we missed the time frame this year, but we planted watermelon and what else did we have?
Tomatoes.
So yeah, watermelon and tomatoes growing in the center of the straw bale, and you just scoop out part of it, and you can put the dirt right in there and plant. And then when it's over, you just go ahead and use it like mulch, and just use it to cover
Mm-hmm.
the ground or whatever. But it grew beautifully, and it was beautiful at the entrance of our school. It looked really pretty for the fall.
Oh.
Hmm.
It certainly did, and it was just a great example of just making an expression as you come to school about what's going on there. And I guess straw bales work because the straw absorbs water, and so it just feeds the roots over a long period of time, doesn't dry out really fast. I mentioned Friendly Avenue because they do an incredible fall thing with straw, and I was there one day when they were just piling them up, and the kids were just jumping from one to the other and moving them around and just playing on this three-dimensional. If you stack them up at least two levels, they become this three-dimensional playscape, and eventually they fall apart, and you just use it as mulch, as you said, or just let it scatter to the wind. That's great. Any other play days reflections? Okay, somebody at the back had their hand up on some other topic, maybe? Other things you can take home about anything you learned today? Yeah.
It's not basically what I learned, but it's just that aha moment. We talked about it yesterday, the cloud chamber and how we made our own cloud chamber. And I just love the experience and the excitement that we ourselves as adults felt. And knowing that if we bring those experiences to young children, that we will see it through the eyes of the children. So when we were trying to figure out, the team that I was with, how to replicate the cloud chamber, and then we were playing with the lenses, and all of a sudden we discovered what that light looks like with the tree shadows. And I just remembered my own reaction and then the reaction from my colleagues that I was with, and it was just so joyful to kind of see that excitement that we still can have that. Even though we know it's going to come, we still was like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. And just know that we can provide those experiences to young children is just so rewarding, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works, right? We get inspired, and especially if a group of us gets inspired, reinforce the inspiration. Maria had a hand up, I think.
I really enjoyed the bird nest activity that we did, and I liked the idea that we worked in a group. We went out and gathered the materials, then we brought back and we sorted the materials, and then did a collaborative project together. And I just really liked that whole sequence of events. I thought it was very helpful in many ways and fun and educational too.
So if you have an outdoor environment that's just mown grass, That was really tough to do, right? So I was there observing the different materials that are just laying on the ground, pine straw, fallen leaves, etc., wood chips. So, once you have a diverse outdoor learning environment, that kind of thing becomes extremely easy, and it's free. And what I like is, as you mentioned, the kids go out and scavenge it, bring it back, interact, and there's a sort of back and forth kind of process going on, which exposes them to other ways of looking at their environment.
I have a confession to make. I kind of cheated today. I went to the Prairie Ridge Ecostation Nature Playscape, and I left my brochure out, and my cousin saw it, and she brought her kids there. So they were playing there, and I was watching them play. And so it was interesting because I watched my own cousin be one of those awful parents who was sitting back. She wasn't on her phone, but she was like, oh, I just needed a little break. And this is wonderful for them to play. And then we both saw it together. There was an older child that was there. She was probably, I would say, 8. And I saw my 2-year-old nephew who was playing with this 8-year-old girl, and they were having a blast. And she said, he's not fighting with her like he fights with his sister. And so she said, he's dealing with a lot of different things. And so she actually started to watch him. And I watched how, okay, so sometimes you have parents who are, sitting back and not doing as much, but other times they might be purposefully sitting back and really watching their kids too. So I think sometimes to not always think of parents as being so awful, because she did make the choice. She said, it was such a nice day. I wanted them to play outside. And so she saw that and brought them there. So also thinking of parents as, getting a break, but also maybe making connections themselves.
So there's no strict rules to any of this, right? It's all about the intention. And that the 8 and 2-year-olds playing together, that is classic. We subdivide age groups, which is a crazy idea in many respects. Although, we understand the reasons, but in this free-form environment, you see that happening, and for all kinds of good reasons. We want that to happen, so they learn from each other.
I have a comment about it because many times I prefer that the parents let the children be free and do not intervene. I remember Mark is from the Brookfield Zoo, from the Hamill Family Play Zoo. Many years ago, when we worked on that project, there was a strategy to distract parents. And so we created something that was called the parent poles. And, and there were these poles, I don't think it was implemented, but we put a lot of energy on creating these poles with information and things for parents, so to distract parents and allow the children to play freely. Yeah.
Okay, so the folks from the Museum of Life and Science are back?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So any reflection you have of things you learned this afternoon that you can take back home that could be adapted to your situation?
This is actually a reflection from yesterday's field trip to the museum, and watching us and the children in the tree houses was really interesting, because there were a number of us who sort of expressed some trepidation or fear or lack of, competence at this task, and the number of little children who would exclaim, "It's okay, you can do it. It's not that scary." And they said that with just such pride. And I thought, what a neat experience for them to be able to show their competence to adults. And how can we set up other sorts of situations where, adults try something that the kids, have mastered, and the kids get to be the ones that say, I'm the expert and I can tell you it's going to be okay.
Wonderful. So any other comments or reflections you want to share, anybody, about anything?
I have a comment. If I have to say what I enjoyed the most, it was today the tug of war. I really enjoyed that one. The women or ladies against men. And then I thought it was the expression of the you ladies have to support me, the expression of the intelligence of women. When we, that because we, for the ones that didn't see what happened, is I don't know who had the idea, but it was just so, we were not losing, we were just struggling. And
No, you were plotting.
and somebody said, just let go. So we let go and they went, oh. I don't know. I had that feeling. For a long time, I hadn't had fun and enjoyment. It was just fabulous.
There's a beautiful metaphor floating around there somewhere.
Let them crash.
Okay, so I just got a couple of things to say. Somewhere along the afternoon, someone mentioned the fact that Duke School has a institute that is on the topic, two actually, on the topic of the project approach with Lillian Katz, who's the guru in that area. One of them is early in November, and the sign-up deadline is October the 20th. I would say that's probably a beginner's course, and then they have a deep dive course in the spring, 1st and 2nd of March, and the deadline for signing up for that is February the 1st. I didn't know that those courses are going, so anybody who's really interested in the project approach, that would be a great opportunity, really terrific. I'm curious to know how many of you are in the Institute for the first time? Quite a scatter. Second time only? Okay, so we have some veterans here too. We know that. Okay, so are we going home believing that you can do science with anything, right? Absolutely anything. You just need to understand what the process is. And I think you got a lot of input on that during the Institute. And do we believe that science literacy, that is to say, just citizens, kids growing up to be adults, voters, taxpayers, etc., science literacy is a really critical aspect of our society today? Yeah? Yes? Yes! Okay. Great. We need to do it, and we can do it with anything. So the last question is, anybody got any ideas of what the topic should be next year for this institute? It will be a question and evaluation, which is the next topic. But any burning ideas? Same topic? Play. Mathematics. Woo! Mathematics through play.
And also balancing with regulation, all of those different standards, because we have licensing standards, we have the environmental rating standard, and some of us have national accreditation standards. And so where this all connects, and that you can still be able to engage spaces.
Great topic.
Or have them on board with us.
Well, yeah. I think by and large in North Carolina they are on board, but I think a presentation by somebody who really knows their stuff, or maybe a couple of presentations would be really useful.
Trying to do for us is trying to do it and still stay in line with all of these entities, because it takes longer for them to change. Because it has to go through so many channels, so we still have to find a way to work within those constraints.
Anybody in the room present at one of the Mythbusters sessions that we did? Ria's been there. Anyway, there was a couple of times we had top experts from the state lined up, and we asked them questions. And basically, most of the questions were answered, sure, you can do that. So, there's a lot of myth out there about things that you can't do. supposedly, but you can actually. Or there's easily met conditions on those. Did I use the right word? Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna